Hi, this is Brendan Davis from Bedrock Games and the Bedrock blog, and I am doing a late night discussion. This is a proper, very late night discussion. It's 2 a.m., which is way past the time when I normally go to bed. And I just finished watching Escape from Alcatraz. I'm going to talk a little bit about the book that I've been working on, but before that, I'm going to talk about Escape from Alcatraz. And people who don't know, late night discussions are a little bit odd. I record these late at night. It's about as close as I get to being in an altered state because I don't drink or use any substances, and so this is like maybe the more surreal podcast episodes where I'm I'm drowsy and I'm talking off the cuff, and so I will meander. I will occasionally not circle back to the main point, but that's kind of the purpose of these. It's more about the atmosphere. So, um, yeah, so I watched Escape from Alcatraz. Now, this is a movie. When I was a kid, I was apparently obsessed with this film, and I don't know why. Um, my memories of it are very foggy, but I recall when I was in elementary school. Keep in mind, I was born in the mid '70s, so this came out, when I was like three. So I was obsessed with it in the mid '80s, probably. This would probably been 84, 85. I would have still been very young, and and I must have seen an advertisement for it appearing on one of those channels, like a syndication channel that played Star Trek or something. Because I remember where we were living, we'd watch like, get home from school, and if you were watching TV, they'd have like cartoons, and then it would become something like Star Trek or Punky Brewster, and then Star Trek, and then after that they would often play these movies from the '70s, frequently Clint Eastwood movies. They were very popular on these channels, and I'm sure that they were planning on airing it or something. And so one of my friends at school, I remember at some point he kept saying to me that I guess I had like really gone on about I really wanted to see this movie, and I had no memory of it, so I didn't know what he was talking about. And this was, but anyways, it was so, and I vaguely remembered the movie. Like I had the I think I remembered like the scenes with them in the in the dining hall, stuff like that. I wasn't even sure if I'd really seen it or not. I knew, I had vague memories of that, like being obsessive about it or being told I was obsessive about it, and thought that I had seen it, but I was never really quite sure. And so I sat down tonight to watch it. I do think I saw it. I'm pretty sure I saw it because it was a lot of it was very familiar. Um, but I don't think that I would have appreciated when I was a kid. Um, you know how well done this movie was, and I don't think that like the best way I can describe it is so this is a Don Siegel film, and there's another, he made Dirty Harry and stuff like that, and so Invasion of the Body Snatchers. uh, the Dirty Harry, there's a famous scene in the football field where he's torturing Scorpio, and he as he's doing it, the camera pans out, and it's this really unusual zoom. I don't know what you would call it, like I don't know what the name for the camera trick is, but it looks really wonderful, and it just feels like you can feel it as a viewer. It just kind of affects you. And this whole movie felt like that kind of filmmaking. So it's just very um, immersive, and I mean, it has plenty of dialogue, but a lot of it is just kind of like the patience of prison, and so there's a lot of sequences where it's more about the motion on screen and things like that. But it's a really good prison movie. It's a really great sort of escape film, um, and it's one of Clint Eastwood's better movies, I think. Again, definitely uh, way better than I was expecting based on my memories. Um, and in fact, I wonder what the rating of this movie is on IMDb or whatever. It's got to be high. It's got to be high. I don't know if I can find it. So it's got a 97% on Rotten Tomatoes. Let's see. Yeah, so Metacritic gives it 76 out of 100. But it was a good movie. And so yeah, I was watching that tonight. And I've been working on the new Gazetteer book, which I think I've mentioned. I think I've mentioned it. It's going to be a prefecture guide. So it'll be a little bit like Sons of Lady 87, but more focused on just the prefecture. It's not going to be quite as extensive because Lady 87 was a big book. This is going to be a smaller book, about 100 pages. And so I'm going to do, there was something that Monty Cook used to talk about. I think you mentioned this when he was working on Tolus or something like that. But he talked about having lenses. And lenses not like as an interpretive device, but as a device for like scaling the details of the setting. So you might have one entry that's like really in focus and gives you a lot of information and kind of shows you how deep things go. But then you have another entry that's, more mid-focus, and then others more broad. And so, if you mix those up, you get kind of an overall view of the place. And so that's what I'm trying to do here is some of the key areas get extensive description, but a lot of them are going to be focused on brevity, just because, with the 100 pages, there's not much room to work with. And something else that I'm trying to do is, and I apologize if I feel like I'm antsy here, but I've been getting hives, and so I'm in the middle of a hive outbreak. But one of the things that I wanted to do with this book, number one, it's coming out really well. I whenever I sit down to do these things, you never know if you still have like fuel in the tank or not sometimes, because I've just been working on Strange Tales in New England, and that was a 5-year project, and so I didn't really have a chance to work on anything in depth for Ogregate for some time. And so I've been running Ogregate. I was, if people who follow the blog, they'll see I was putting stuff up. I've been kind of tinkering with different documents here and there, but this was the first time I really, sort of hunkered down to work on. And this document I had started, I forget when, last year maybe, but it was kind of just preliminary. And that's kind of how I work. I'll kind of like do something preliminary, and then I'll come back to it, and then I'll really sink into it once I have more clarity on what I want. It's almost like coats of paint, and so I came back to it quite recently, and it was kind of just explosive how much material I produced for it, which is, for me, that's always a sign, okay, you should keep working on this project. And so, and also I was giving myself time crunches to do things, and that was kind of giving me more energy. So, but so right now the document is 46,000 words. I don't want to get past 50 is sort of like the soft cap, and I would say 60 is the hard cap. If I go to 60, it's going to inflate the budget a little bit, which I'm trying to avoid. But if I have to, I can. Because basically if I go to 60, that not only does that mean I need to get more art, because the way that I do art is it's, usually I try to do art every 5 pages. On this book, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it quite every 5 pages or not. I still have to sort of figure this out. But then you also have layout and editing and all that stuff. So the word count will increase the budget. I apologize. Which in this case will mean it increases the time it takes to produce. So I have to be careful. But one of the things I was trying to do with this book, and again, this is the circling back to the main point thing again. is I wanted to make a source book for the setting where the GM can basically kind of roll out of bed, or if they come to the game and they're feeling like really run down. And it's like every GM I'm sure knows what this is like when you get to the session and you're there out of obligation, but you're sick, or you're mentally fatigued, or whatever it is, and running the game is like the hardest thing in the world compared to how it normally is. Or you simply just didn't have time to gather all of the materials you needed for that session into some kind of organized thing. I want the GM to be able to just take this book and not worry about that, because they know that it's structured in a way where something of interest is going to happen. And so the way that I did that was, number one, I just kind of did the thing that I always do with the setting in terms of how I make, characters and locations and all these things. But I worked really hard to create a chapter of random tables, sort of building off some of the tables I had in Sons of Lady 87, but really taking it in a much more, I would say, a much more, I don't know what the right word would be, but the direction is, I think, very interesting. And so just the players wandering around and making survival rolls to avoid encounters, that's going to lead them into situations where there will potentially be adventures, that kind of thing. There's also a very interesting rumor table in there that's also designed towards that. But I think that the idea is, even if nothing happens in the session, just if the players go from point A to point B because they're traveling from one city to another, you're going to have interesting things. And so that's one of the big goals. The other thing is, I really wanted to emphasize the horror in this one. And I always talk about Feast of Goblins as my favorite module. This module doesn't have the flow or the structure of Feast of Goblins. But it does kind of pay tribute in other ways. And so, one, it's horror. Two, there's a couple of locations where it's like, okay, this is an homage to this thing from that. It's also really gets into the local culture. The Lady 87 did this as well, but in this time, I'm really kind of getting into things like the tea house culture, things like that. And yeah, so, and again, like I said, this one has got a little bit more of a horror bend. So, so just as an example, on the random encounter table, there is one of the possible entries is the sinister personalities table. You could get that and then roll on that table, and you'll meet kind of like the boogeyman of the prefecture. And yeah, so I've been running. I had run a couple of campaigns in this prefecture, but only like preliminary, like short session campaigns. Because again, I was really focused on Strange Tales in New England up until very recently, and so now I'm running a more regular term campaign, and I think we're on we just finished session 11, and so it's coming along very well, I would say, and it's giving me a lot of chances to kind of work things out. I know this book is coming out well because I remember when I was at this point with Lady 87, and I was in a similar type of campaign, and I was kind of in like a similar type of mood and mindset, and it's like you kind of feel it when you hit a stride with these things. And so for a while I didn't know what book we were going to do, because I was kind of had a few ideas of what I wanted to do for this series, and the thing that really kind of forced my hand on it was I had decided to one of my mappers I had scheduled to have them map something so that I wasn't so in advance, because everybody you can't like just ask somebody like a month in advance sometimes. And so I when the time came, I realized, I didn't know what map I wanted. And the most fleshed out map that I thought would be like the map that I had that was in the best state to serve as a model was the prefecture map. And so that kind of kicked things into gear. And that was really good for me because sometimes when that sort of thing happens, it's like all of the energy in my system gets devoted to it and it really comes out nice. I work really well under those kind of high pressure type situations. So it was kind of, it could have gone either way before that, but then once that happened, I was like, okay, this is what we're doing. And so it's it's been exciting. I'm really happy about how this came out. I'm very picky when I work on stuff, and so sometimes like people don't realize this, but I have like a lot of books, supplements, rule books that have been completed that I have not put out. And the reason why is if I don't feel like I had the enthusiasm while I was writing it, I'm usually not as happy with the content. And so the way that I would put it is, if like there might be a book that I finish and I'm like, well, it feels about as good as something like that I might consider okay enough for my campaign or maybe for the blog, but not something I want to publish. So so if I feel that way about it, I put it aside, and sometimes I might come back to it and see if I can find another angle to it. But I'm very picky like that with my own stuff, especially with the Ogre Gate material. And so this one I'm very certain of, and like basically I have to really like the content in order to feel like, okay, this needs to be a release. Because even with that map, if I wasn't happy with where it was going, I would have just, I would have paid and got the map, but I wouldn't have necessarily put out a book around the prefecture. I might have used it for the blog or whatever, or for maybe like a smaller type thing. But yeah, so I think that this one's going to come out really nice, and we'll see where I'm going to go from here. I still have the Profound Masters of Ogre Gate, the new Profound Masters of Ogre Gate that I was working on, and that's pretty robust. That's either going to end up on the blog or be put out. But it's a question of after I finish this, do I have the same kind of feeling about the Profound Masters? And so if I don't, I'll definitely release what I have so that people can see it, or I'll finish it and I'll release it. But if I get excited about it like this, then it'll become probably the next book. But again, I have to feel like, okay, this meets the level that I want the Ogre Gate material to be at. So that's just, to me, that's very important. And so so I think that's it's probably everything. Again, it's a late night podcast, so we could go in any direction at this point. But so I do have a I know I'm doing this in reverse. I usually do my promos at the beginning, but I have a review of Intimate Confessions of a Chinese Courtesan up at Eastern Kicks. I'd highly recommend people check it out because, number one, I really am. I worked hard on this review. It's maybe one of, if not the favorite, wuxia movie of mine, and I wanted to get the review right. I still have quibbles about some of the language that I was using in it, but the review I think is solid, and I think will be insightful to people if they're interested in the movie. We'll give people some insights if they're interested in the movie. And so check it out. Again, it's at Eastern Kicks. And I'm going to be putting out a follow-up too, because I'm also I got the new Blu-ray of that movie, and it came with the remake that Cho Yuen did, which I think is a Lust for Love of a Chinese Courtesan, and that one is kind of notorious, but when I review it, you'll see my thoughts. And then I also have the Magnificent Bodyguards. They put out a new Blu-ray. I don't know if that's going to go up on the blog or on Eastern Kicks. The other Courtesan movie will go up on Eastern Kicks, but Magnificent Bodyguards is kind of it's kind of I don't like this language, but it's kind of a guilty pleasure of mine. if only because everybody kind of knows that that period of Jackie Chan's career is like not as good as his later career, because he wasn't really being used in a way that met his talents. Um, but I like Magnificent Bodyguards. I think it's an entertaining movie. It's got a lot of goofy, strange features that are fun to talk about. And this one comes with 3D glasses, I believe, because it says 3D on it. Um, it's supposed to be a 3D movie, but the version I always had was a really crappy DVD that you couldn't you could barely see anything, and half the subtitles were cut off the screen. Um, and then I'm going to be doing so. I think because I did the Intimate Confessions movie, now that they had asked me to do the Sex and Zen. I think there might be one other movie. I can't remember, but I'm definitely doing one of the Sex and Zen movies, which were actually kind of interesting because they are kind of like real movies, but they're sort of this category three. There was this whole thing when they did the category three movies where they just put out films like this, and they're like highly erotic, but they're also often very good movies. They're kind of like a way of getting bums in seats, you know. But yeah, so you know we'll you know, and there's other ones that are like more action oriented and things like that. This is a little bit more supernatural. But yeah. So anyways, I will let you go, and until next time, I will talk to you later.